Everyone, how would you genuinely feel if, even though your beloved family member passed away exactly 10 years ago, you started hearing the distinct, rhythmic sound of their typewriter coming from the dark, empty basement every single night? Imagine the scene clearly. It is a large, empty mansion where silence should reign. It is 3 a.m., the witching hour, when everyone is deep in sleep. Suddenly, from beneath the floorboards, a sound begins to creep up the stairs. Click, clack, click, click, ding! It is the unmistakable sound of keys striking the platen and the carriage return bell ringing. This is not a scene from a horror movie. This is a phenomenon actually happening right now in the house of Arthur, an elderly mystery novelist who suddenly died of a heart attack a decade ago. At first, the family tried to deny it. They told themselves it was just the sound of mice gnawing on the pipes, or perhaps the old building, settling and shifting in the wind. They were too afraid to face the truth. But one night, the eldest son, driven by a mixture of fear and courage, decided to open that forbidden basement door. What he saw there made him freeze in terror. There was absolutely no one sitting in the chair. The room was empty, yet the keys of the antique typewriter were moving on their own, pressing down heavily, and fresh black ink was being stamped onto a crisp, white sheet of paper in real time. Today, I am going to tell you the true story of the manuscript from the afterlife that sent shivers down the world's spine. What exactly was the dead author so desperate to tell us that he couldn't rest, even in death? If you watch this video to the end, you will face the bizarre and touching truth hidden behind the vast, terrifying veil of death. Subscribe and like now, and let's enter this chilling mystery together. To understand this phenomenon, we must first talk about the protagonist of our story, Grandfather Arthur. Arthur was a writer who spent his entire life writing mystery novels. In his later years, he became obsessed with one specific theme, the world after death. He used to tell his family, "I will write a novel that proves the human soul is eternal. That will be my masterpiece." However, fate was not on his side. He suffered a sudden heart attack one cold winter night and passed away before he could even finish the first chapter of that final book. He died with his eyes wide open, staring at his typewriter, full of regret and unfinished business. After his funeral, the family tried to clear out his belongings, but that's when the strange events began. It wasn't just the sound. Along with the typing noises, the temperature in the house would drop drastically. For example, even in the middle of a sweltering summer, if you went near the basement door, you could see your breath, and frost would form on the doorknob. It was a bone-chilling cold that penetrated the skin. The family, terrified, called in everyone they could think of: psychics, priests, and even scientists with advanced equipment. But no modern science could explain it. The typewriter was a completely manual, mechanical device, requiring no electricity. There were no hidden wires, no magnets, and absolutely no signs of external intrusion in the dusty basement. The only explanation remaining was one that defied logic. Arthur's spirit was still sitting there. Was he trapped in this house because of his impatience to finish his work? Or was there a more terrifying, darker truth hidden at the bottom of that basement that we are unaware of? The first bizarre fact discovered was the content of the sentences being typed on that machine. You might think it would be random gibberish, or just repeated letters like a glitch, but it was not. It was coherent, elegant, and chillingly precise. The manuscript was continuing exactly from where Arthur had left off 10 years ago. Imagine this: the writing style, the vocabulary, the specific rhythm of the sentences. It was perfectly identical to Arthur's. It contained secret metaphors and symbols that only he knew, things he had never shared with anyone while he was alive. For instance, he used a specific nickname for his wife that only he used in private letters from 40 years ago. Literary experts who analysed these pages were shocked. They concluded, it is impossible for anyone other than Arthur to write these sentences. This captures the nuance of his soul. Is it really possible for a novel to be transmitted in real time from the afterlife? A scientist investigating this phenomenon decided to measure the electromagnetic fields in the basement. He found something that made his blood run cold. Every time the typewriter key struck the paper, clack, the electromagnetic waves spiked in a pattern that perfectly matched human brain waves during deep concentration. It was as if the dead writer wasn't using fingers to type, but was manipulating the physical force of the room with his sheer will and thought. The basement had become a bridge between the living and the dead. The second, and perhaps the most important secret, was revealed as the novel reached its conclusion. As the manuscript neared its end, the typewriter stopped writing fiction and began addressing the family directly. It typed a specific command: dig the floor beneath the desk, 3 feet deep. It wasn't a request, it was a desperate plea. The family, overcoming their fear, took shovels and pickaxes to the basement. They dug exactly where the machine had indicated. And there, buried in the cold earth, they found a rusted metal box. Inside were not gold or jewels, but a single old photograph and a worn-out key. The photograph showed a young Arthur standing with a group of people who were known as Nameless Heroes people, who had secretly fought against a corrupt regime decades ago. Arthur had hidden this part of his life to protect his family from retaliation. The unfinished novel was just a method, a medium to lead his family to this truth. Even in death, he didn't want to clear his own name. He wanted to restore the honor of his fallen comrades. He had lived his whole life writing fiction as a mystery novelist, but in the end, he wanted to complete the most truthful, non-fiction story of his life. The typing wasn't a haunting. It was an act of love and justice that transcended the physical boundary of death. Psychology experts analyze this phenomenon using the concept of residual haunting, or strong attachment to unfinished business. The hypothesis is that when a human spirit leaves the body, if their will is strong enough, it can imprint a physical trace on a specific location. It's like a recording on a cassette tape that plays over and over again. Scientific communities sometimes explain this with the field memory theory. This theory suggests that intense emotions like Arthur's, desperate, desire to tell the truth, are recorded in the energy field of a space and can physically manifest under certain conditions. However, Arthur's case challenges the very foundation of modern science because it went beyond simple playback. He produced new information, interacted with the living, and guided them to a physical object. This suggests that consciousness does not end with the death of the brain. The typewriter became the only conduit, an analog interface, connecting the frequency of the afterlife with the reality of the living. It proves that love and duty are forces as real and powerful as gravity. So, what profound lesson should we take away from this bizarre story? First, we must realize that death is not the absolute end of everything. The beliefs, the will, and the love we leave behind continue to influence the world in ways we cannot imagine. Second, if you have unfinished business or unsaid words, do not wait until you are old. Do it now. Do not burden your soul with the labor of typing from the afterlife, like Grandfather Arthur. Clear your conscience and express your love today. Finally, do not dismiss strange phenomena around you simply as fear or superstition. That unexplained sound, that sudden scent, or that feeling of being watched it might be the most desperate message of love from someone who left before you. Start listening to the stories of your family members today. The conversations you have while you are alive are infinitely warmer and more valuable than the cold sound of a typewriter from the grave. The greatest sentences are not those left on paper, but those left in the hearts of loved ones. Arthur's final manuscript is now complete and kept in a museum, but the typewriter has fallen silent. Although he is no longer with us, his will whispered a hope beyond death through the sound of those keys. I hope this strange and touching story has brought a small resonance to your life today. Remember, it is not death that we should fear, but the regret of not having conveyed all our love. If you enjoyed this story, please share it with those around you. And if you want to know more mysteries of the world and wisdom of the elderly, please subscribe.